Yo, what's up? I hope you guys are doing well. Today I wanted to show you how to record guitar. I want to make sure your recordings don't sound like poop. So step one, pick your guitar, pick your weapon. This is my Fender Telecaster. It has a single coil pickup in it. And for a long time, I did play in bands with breakdowns, so I did use humbuckers. Let me show you my other guitar. This is my Fender HSS Strat. It says 6-9 nice on the knobs. It's my first time, XXX, and it has an on-off kill switch. So this is a perfect recording guitar if you have heavier parts. And also on this guitar, the pickup selection is down humbucker, up one single coil, middle pickup, and then neck pickup. And I used this guitar for a really long time, even on the single coil pickup. But I just noticed that my Tele had a little bit more clarity to it and can kind of touch on all the realms of rock a little bit better than this guitar. And then one other option that I like to go to sometimes is to use a P90. This is my Fender Mustang, and I used it when I used to play in a surf rock band because it's perfect for less gainy tones, and this is also a short scale, so it's easier to play when you're trying to go up and down on the neck. But like I said, as I got older and I started recording more bands and different bands, I just came to the conclusion that single coil works best for me, and I get the most clarity out of this guitar. So step 2 is change your strings. I don't want to hear that you boiled your strings in your ramen to make sure that your strings sound fresh again. I know you don't want to pay for them, but you have to do it. It's going to help you get to a point of clarity and bring you closer to a perfect guitar tone. And then the next thing is you want to check your intonation. The way that you can easily check if you need to get your guitar set up, when you check a tuner and you hit an open E, it should say E, and then you hit the 12th fret, which is an octave up, and it should be the same note on your tuner. It shouldn't be out of tune when you hit that top note. But if it is out of tune, go get a setup. You're probably due for it, so stop neglecting your guitar and get a setup. Okay, so you picked your favorite guitar. It's got fresh strings. It's intonated. Next step is the guitar cable. This is a Mogami cable. It's a little bit more expensive, but I figured I'm recording so many bands, I'm recording every day, I need one nice cable to go into my interface. It works, it's not broken, it's the simple stuff that adds up. So we're gonna plug in the guitar, we're gonna go straight into the interface, or DI box, or tuner into DI box, or tuner into LA610 into interface, or whatever. The simplest way is just guitar into interface. You're gonna get the cleanest signal, there's gonna be the least amount of resistance passing through all these other things, and you're gonna keep it simple. Now, if your interface does have a high Z setting, definitely turn that on. That's going to bring out the most clarity out of your guitar and open up the most frequency to be received in the interface. So here's my tone with no high Z. And here's my tone with high Z. It's subtle, but it does add a little bit of clarity, and when you start stacking all these guitars of rhythms, leads, backing guitars, you're going to hear a huge difference when all those pieces are in there. The next part that's really important is you got to pick your guitar tone. You can use a real amp and you can mic it up. You can use one of these nerdy things like the Quad Cortex, or you can use what I use, which is Amplitude. So let's enter Pro Tools. Dude, every time I do that, I feel like I'm going to throw up. So this is Amplitude. There's plenty of other options. There's Guitar Rig, there's the neural stuff, there's the STL tone stuff. There's a bunch of great options out there, but I like Amplitude. After working in a real studio that had over 40 real heads and probably 20 guitar cabs, I did shoot it out between this and the real stuff, and the only difference that you're going to feel is the actual feeling and the response of playing a real amp and the way that it woofs back and forth. But I think that this sounds great. And also, if you're picking your tone off a plugin, you can always change the tone later after you record everything. You're not committed to the tone that you recorded in, unless you save the DI and you want to do reamping with a real amp or the Quad Cortex or whatever it is. I just find that this is the easiest way to keep things flowing in the studio and keep the creativity going. So real quickly, I'll show you my standard tone that I used to tour with and that I use on tons of bands' records, and it's a very straightforward standard tone that can work on most rock genres. So first we have a noise gate. This is going to keep your guitar playing sounding tight. Every time that you stop playing guitar, it's going to be dead quiet. You're not going to hear the buzz of the cable or the buzz of the amp. So the noise gate is really important to have as you start stacking guitars because it's going to keep your recordings clean. The next thing I'm going to add is a tube screamer. This is called the Overscream Overdrive Pro. So any sort of overdrive will work for this, but the settings I usually have for this is tone almost all the way up, level all the way up on the way out, and then you're just going to pick your overdrive between 0 and 2. All that's going to do is tighten up the low end of your guitar tone. So this is going to clean up and tighten up your guitar so that it sounds a little bit more intentional when you're playing a part that's palm muted or anything where you really want to hear the pick attack as you're recording. And then you're going to want to pick your amp. So to me, there's a ton of options out there. There's a ton of amp heads, but I like the Soldanos and I like the orange amps because I feel like they are the roundest tone-wise. There's always a little bit of crispness in the high end. There's always a little bit of woof in the low end, and it almost kind of boxiness in a good way. So today I'm using this Thunderverb 200 orange amp. If you're doing metal, I would suggest the 6505 or even the Soldano is great, or triple rectifier is also an awesome option. And then to me, this is the most important step of your recording guitar process. It's going to be picking your mic and picking picking the mic placement. So on this cab, I have a Royer 121 running on the left speaker, which is a V30, and then I have a 414, which is this mic that I'm speaking into the right speaker set at a 45-degree angle. So it's facing the cone, but it's also picking up a little bit of the side of the speaker, which is going to help bring out some of that low end. And also the Royer 121 is already kind of a darker mic as it is. The 421 is picking up the clarity and the realness and the full EQ spectrum of what that amp really sounds like in the room. And then the Royer 121 is adding a little bit of vibe and warmth to the sound. Now, a great cheap option is you pick up an SM57, you go to the center of the speaker, and then I would suggest you move just half an inch away from the center of the speaker. This mic is super harsh. It has a lot of mids in it. So yes, you will get a ton of clarity out of this mic, and it's a nice cheap option, but you need to be careful that you're not overloading your interface with too much harshness around 3K. So once you got your tone all situated and the miking all situated and the levels all situated, let's record a guitar part, and I'm going to show you quickly how I would go about mixing it. So the first thing I'm usually going to load in is Pro Q. I'm going to clean up some of the lows, the highs, and the harshness. Let's find the point where the guitars just rumble and not so much note. So it looks like at around 100 hertz, everything below 100 hertz is just rumble, and it's going to get in the way of the bass guitar, it's going to get in the way of the kick, and it's going to make your mix really messy as you keep stacking things. Next, let's see what is just fizz in that top end and do the same thing that we did with the low end and just cut it out. So it looks like with this tone, anything above around 7K hertz, but it's set to a pretty shallow cutoff, so it is letting in a little bit more of the higher frequency, up to probably like 10 to 12K. But on this, it sounds like everything above 7K is just fizz and a little bit of just like ear ticklingness, and I don't want nobody in my ears, so we're gonna cut that out. The next thing I want to look for is any harshness. When you're miking up a cab, you're always gonna get a little bit of harshness out of the speaker around 3K, especially if you're using an SM57. So let's solo out that frequency. So let's find anything that just sucks and let's take it out. Okay, so it looks like around 3,400 hertz, it gets pretty harsh, so we're going to duck that out. And then the next thing I want to do is clean up the low end and find where any sort of woof is happening or any too much buildup of low end, and we're going to bring it down just a little bit. So it looks like at around 200 hertz, we're going to bring it down a little bit because it's sort of a buildup of low end. And again, as you stack these guitars, it's going to keep building on itself, and it's going to be a huge mess when you go to add in the other elements of your song. So now the guitars are totally correct and cleaned up, but now we're going to add a little bit of clarity and a little bit of control. So we're going to open up an SSL EQ. I know it seems counterintuitive, but I'm going to boost 8K as a shelf, but it's not going to bring in any of the fizz because we already got rid of that in that earlier EQ. So I'm going to play it, and I'm going to turn up 8K until it starts sounding like there's the right amount of clarity and not too much harshness. So boosting around 9 dB of that, which is a ton, but the SSL EQ is super forgiving. It sounds great. It's adding a little bit more of that clarity and a little bit more of that crunch fizz with the note. And then we want to have a little bit of control to the guitar, so we're going to compress it a little bit. As you're switching between full chords and palm mutes, there's going to be a buildup of low end when you're doing palm mutes, and it's going to change your perception of how loud the guitar is. So when you're doing palm mutes, you're probably going to see the compressor activate more so than when you're strumming the guitar, just because of that buildup of low end. And also the way that I like to use this SSL compressor, especially on high gain guitars, is I like to throw the threshold all the way up, and I like to control the amount that it's compressing with the ratio. That way it's not a hard cut and a hard snap when the compressor is running. It's going to be a slow slope of where it grabs the guitar, and it's a little bit more of a natural way to compress something. I'm just going to try to get this first light going, which is max 3 dB. So as you see, when the guitar hits the palm mute, it's going full yellow, and then when it's doing the strumming, it's a lighter version of that yellow. So that's how we know the compressor is touching every part of the guitar, but it's not too heavy-handed. So I gave you all the tools, I gave you all my secrets. Go create the greatest song in the entire world, and then when you make $1 million, please buy me a Chipotle burrito. I hope you guys enjoyed that video. Make sure to subscribe, buy me a burrito, and I'll catch you guys next time. Fix your posture. See ya.